rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. Oh, my goodness. Where was I? Oh, yes. So there have been some responses from the Democrats in Chicago, well, at least one in particular. And, at least one in particular that, well, it's a little disgusting, to be honest with you. But then again, that's the way Democrats, especially those in Chicago, kind of roll. And also the Democrats jumped onto the, oh my gosh, ICE is in the airports and look at what happened. Look. And the video that they show has nothing to do with ICE necessarily taking over the TSA's position, although they tried to put it that way. So anyway, we'll get to all that hopefully soon. And of course, I can't forget SCOTUS. Yeah, they're not all that, I don't think they're on board with the idea that you can just have ballots keep showing up for no reason past Election Day. We'll get into that in just a moment, but first, we have the outlaw dogs up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So, if you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hat, if you're wearing one like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Outlaw Dogs as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, Outlaw Dogs, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the Pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the Pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, and then address that email to me. Send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. If I have 23 of these now, I'd like to get 26 by the end of 2026, so if you would, please get it in soon. If you find that the file is a little too big to email, you can also use one of the wonderful online storage things like Google Drive, Dropbox, or Box. They'll allow you to create a link where I can download it. You send that link to me, and then I'll download it and take care of it for you after that. Also, if you do it on your phone, you can use the share option. That's the SHARE option. And you'll be able to send it on to me, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will, of course, put you into the rotation. All right, let's get to tonight's headline sponsor, which is not much of a surprise to any of my Whiskey Warrior P1s. They've got it down so much that they could probably even recite the most of the the commercial, if not all of it. Anyway, it is none other than the Constitution, the Institute on the Constitution, which you can get there by going to theamericanview.com. That's theamericanview.com, where you can go and check out this wonderful organization. and join their mission to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education from a biblical worldview. Now, how do you do that, you ask? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You have 3 steps. Step number 1, which is probably one of the most important, is to pray. That's right, pray every day. Pray for our country, pray for its president, pray for the people that are in and trying to keep America, America. And then what you need to do is you need to study. Now, I had an idiot on Facebook try and challenge me on the birthright citizenship stuff. And of course, I pointed them to the actual congressional record, known as the Congressional Globe back then, on May 30th of 1866, when the Senate took up House Joint Resolution number 127, which was the 14th Amendment, and the conversation between the senators in terms of the language that was proposed. And they basically said, where in the Constitution does it say this? Where in whatever does it say that? Point to the... Well, okay, hello. I'm pointing to the historical record of how the language was brought forth. I don't know how much more, honestly, how much more original you can get. But anyway, sorry, Institute on the Constitution, but I digress. Back to their thing. You got to study. And of course, what do you study? Well, you study the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. And to help with that, they have this U.S. Constitution course. You can sign up right here above my head. Sign up. And all you need to do is enter your name, first name, last, and then your email address, and they will send you 12 lessons. It's 100% free. It's 100% online. They send it to your inbox, 1 per week. They're about 15 to 20 minutes long, these lessons are. They're little short videos. And you go and you read through the videos and everything else, and they send them to you. It's absolutely a wonderful course. It's nationally recognized. And you can study the U.S. Constitution in these short lessons. 100% free. Again, all you need to do is sign up by using your first name, last name, and your email address right there in the box that is above my head in the video here. And once you've done that, then you can also explore some of the other live classes that are available. They've got them all over South Dakota. They've got them in Ohio. They've got them in Delaware. They've got them all over the place, all over the country. You can go and check all of them out. All of them out. They've got several courses. There are four or five, I think, in total. And then once you're done with that, you can decide to become a member. And after you explore their live classes and everything, and you why don't you share your newfound information by becoming an instructor for them? This video right here, I'm flashing, it's the one on the left. It tells you how to become an IOTC instructor. And they also have this instructor kit that you can go and purchase. It is fantastic. It's got all kinds of information and books. Great, great stuff. Okay. Great stuff. And then what you can do is you can also head on over to the shop, not only to pick up your instructor kit, but also some other educational resources and things like that. Or you could visit my favorite point in the shop, which is right above my head right here. It's called the Legacy Library. That is a fantastic place. Got a lot of leather stuff in it. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a bit of a cowboy, and I kind of like my leather. Anyway, you can go and pick up the leather-bound U.S. Constitution, which I have right here in my hot little hand. Yes, this is the sexy rounded corners book known as the Constitution of the United States. And according to my Whiskey Warrior 3 Chevy, the contents of the aforementioned rounded-cornered Saddleback leather book will come as a complete surprise to any and all liberals. Because they haven't read it. They don't have any idea what's going on in here at all. Okay. Well, anyway, let's take a closer look. This is 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. No cheap glue here, folks. There is stitching all the way through the binding and the pages contained within. It would make a surgeon jealous. The stitching would. Anyway, it's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if you have a problem with this, book in that time frame, you can send it back to the manufacturer, and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. My youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to get your civics badge in scouting, as well as your civics exam, if they still have them, and maybe even your naturalization test. It'll help you study for all of those. Great investment right here. Perfect investment. It's also a family heirloom. You can pass it down generation to generation, or just buy as many as you need for your generational setups. But anyway, head on over to theamericanview.com, theamericanview.com, and take a look at all their wonderful information, schooling, etc. Don't forget to check out that legacy library, too. The Institute on the Constitution is a proud sponsor of the American Perspective Show. All right. Oh. Well, Mark Wayne Mullen is now our new DHS chief. He becomes the 9th DHS secretary, replacing Kristi Noem. Now, there was some question as to whether or not he was actually going to make it all the way through confirmation. There was a couple of fiery moments, but he made it. He passed muster. And so now he is in charge of a non-functioning agency at this point because there's no funding. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that. Yeah. Anyway, Trump also has been kind of talking like, well, the Save America Act should be tied to DHS funding. Yeah. Anyway, obviously, in case you haven't noticed, the Save America Act is like this really big thing to the Republicans. Big thing. But anyway, so yeah. And, anyway, there was there was Senators John Fetterman and Martin Heinrich joined. Both of those are Democrats, by the way, in case you didn't know that. Both joined nearly every Republican to clinch the nomination. Heinrich said that he bucked his party because he has seen that Mullen, who co-chairs the Senate Legislative Branch Spending Committee with him, is not someone who can simply be bullied into changing his views. So how do you like that? A Democrat applauding a Republican with backbone. Not only of his own, but also applauding the backbone of the Republican that was there. But anyway, well, we'll just have to kind of see what happens. Heinrich continued and says, I look forward to having a secretary who doesn't take their orders from Stephen Miller. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, Senator Rand Paul, of course, still had his panties in a wad. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Nana, my unofficial producer. But apparently he was the only Republican to vote against Mullen, talking about their chilly relationship and Mullen's past comments that Senator Paul's assault back in 2017 by his neighbor was justified. Anyway, whatever. I'm just glad we got somebody else. Anyway, it's not that I was really I'm not really a Kristi Noem fan, but I'm also not really a Kristi Noem hater either. She was just sort of, frankly, I just want somebody who's a little more kind of like the Bulldog, Tom Homan, you know, goes in and freaking just says it like it is, takes charge. I mean, Homan knows the law too, which is really kind of cool as well, because he recited a bunch of stuff against AOC, and AOC, well, you know, if I don't know if anybody's noticed, but she's kind of taking a back seat. She's real quiet right now, and I don't know why. But anyway, I'm just happy about that. Well, one politician in Chicago who has literally stepped in it is this alderwoman. Can we really call her a woman? I mean, it's, again, I'll be honest with you, I'm still a little confused with the Dems, because the Dems don't even know what a woman is. So how can a Republican or a strict constitutionalist like myself call her a woman when she doesn't even know whether she's a woman or not? I don't know. Anyway, her comments, she made some comments. She posted some sort of a social media video. I don't know if it hit TikTok or whatever. But anyway, and it was done shortly after the unfortunate death of Sheridan Gorman, who was 18 and at Loyola University, a freshman. This was basically her first time away from home, let's say. I don't know if that's true or not, but pretty much just about anybody that goes to college is the first time they're away home. And they were apparently, according to reports, she was walking down on the riverbank, looking at the Northern Lights, when they say that they saw this person hiding behind, I don't know, a building, bushes, whatever. And then this person jumped out at them and they ran because they were scared. And she unfortunately got shot in the back. And I'm not exactly sure if it was in the back or in the head. I've heard the back of the head. So we'll just kind of go with that at the moment. Well, if you really want to know what she said, well, let's go ahead and listen. I know I don't like to necessarily listen to these idiots, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and listen to this alderman. God, I wish she was just an alder tree. Anyway.
All the time, right? And they go out on the pier, they walk around. So the kids were out doing normal things people do in the neighborhood. And it sounds like this might have been a wrong place, wrong time, running into a person who had a gun. They might have startled this person at the end of the pier unintentionally. But that's.
Wait, did you hear that? They may have startled this person. Startled this person. Oh my gosh, they startled this person. Really? Look, I don't care if you're startled or not. To be honest with you, you don't. Just because you startle somebody doesn't deserve you being shot in the head for it. You know, these freaking idiot leftist lunatics, like these people, they bend over backwards. They bend over backwards. Oh, and hey, that's an absolute fantastic good point there, 3 Chevy. Because I thought they couldn't have guns there. Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot Chicago is one of the, I don't know how I could forget, but Chicago is one of those cities that has, you know, like the strictest gun laws in the area. Huh. Yeah. Right. Well, the parents or the family of the murdered girl, unfortunately, they, let's just take a moment to just understand the gravity of this situation. You sent your daughter off to college, to Chicago, assuming that she was going to be safe. And what does she do? She ends up getting shot by an illegal alien who was just picked up not that far away for shoplifting and was never sent to DHS because of the fact that this is a sanctuary city, which legally speaking doesn't even exist. They are literally ignoring federal law and the Supremacy Clause. They are literally ignoring immigration law in order to create these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. So they're already in violation of their of the Constitution, the United States Constitution. But anyway, I digress. The family, which was a statement, was shared with a NBC affiliate, referred to the disgusting comments by the alder whatever and refuted them. They said, quote, "We acknowledge the arrest of the individual accused of taking our daughter's life and thank the Chicago Police Department, Area 3 detectives, and all those involved in the investigation who worked quickly to identify and apprehend him. Their efforts matter, but this is not justice. It is a first step toward it." What Sheridan was doing that night, walking with friends near her campus, was normal. It was safe. Well, apparently not. It is what students do every day. We will not allow this to be dismissed as a, quote, wrong place, wrong time. This was not random misfortune. This was a violent and preventable act. And as mentioned above, the guy was only free to murder Gorman because the Democrats had released him twice after he had committed crimes. The family continued and says, "We are gravely disappointed by the policies and failures that allowed this individual to remain in a position to commit this crime when systems fail. Whether through release decisions, lack of coordination, or unwillingness to act, the consequences are not abstract. They are real. And in our case, they are permanent." Now, don't forget that Governor won't pass by a buffet, J.B. Pritzker. Well, actually, he's been losing weight. I wonder if they put like the lap band or something in his stomach. Anyway, presumably that's for a hopefully failed presidential run. Anyway, he walked along that same river and was saying, "Hey, this is perfectly safe. It's perfectly normal. Everything's cool. Donald Trump doesn't know what he's talking about." Really? Really? Apparently Donald Trump did know what he's talking about. Apparently he did. So anyway, yeah, it's sad, unfortunately, that we have to have lessons like this. Even though the smart people in the room, the adults in the room, who sit there and think about, okay, well, what could go wrong with this policy, and actually care about what could go wrong with that policy, are not being listened to. And that would be us, meaning the smart ones, the ones that are not the stupid smart people. Democrats are the stupid smart people. All right. Well, I want to give a quick shout out to where was it? Oh yeah. I want to give a quick shout out to oh, that's weird. Wonder what's going on there. Completely strange. Just a second. Because all right, well, it doesn't show me. But anyway, I want to give a shout out to anybody who is on Locals. Locals is a new streaming service that we just started. And And well, it's not just started, but it's just that I just started streaming to tonight. So anybody who is on locals right now, welcome. Welcome to the program. And I hope you enjoy the show and are willing to come back and watch it again. Anyway, let's see. Where was I? Oh, yes. Let me go ahead. Before I move on to my next topic, let me go ahead and talk to you about coffee. That's right. I know I love my coffee every morning. I call it the elixir that wakes me up in the morning. And I got to tell you, if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit has just dropped. Only a small number of units are available. In each unit, you're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus without any kind of a crash during the day. You know sometimes how that happens. You know, you get that sugar rush or whatever and kind of crash a little bit later. Yeah. Anyway, all of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. Let's face it, it's not really all that hard to stir those up. You'll also be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. It is $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 coffee blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to the number's 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they are gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit today. Well, the leftists are gonna be a little pissed. That's right. The leftists are gonna be a little pissed. And why, you say? Well, yesterday's oral arguments with regards to elections just continuing and continuing and continuing. What I am talking about in particular is a case that has reached the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, this was in regards to a Mississippi law that allows the state to count mail-in ballots received after election day. Now, Mississippi only allows mail-in ballots received within what's called a 5-day grace period. However, there are a crap ton of other states, up to 18 states, that accept mail-in ballots received after Election Day as long as they are postmarked on or before Election Day, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. Now, I don't know about you, but that just seems a little suspicious. One of these 18 actually has it that it could show up up to 2 weeks later, and it would be counted. You see where the problem might come into play with this? I mean, I'll be completely honest. I know that the post office isn't exactly what they used to be. You know, they used to be the most reliable shipping organization, in America. But I know that for me to send a letter from here to a city across the state, it does not take 2 weeks to mail that. And especially considering that if you're mailing something to your local precinct, it shouldn't take more than maybe an overnight trip to get there. Well, in some of the arguments, they were even talking about how the mail it may actually show up to the post office, get stamped, but then sit for a day or two before it gets shipped out to its location. And it's kind of like, not exactly sure I understand what you were dealing with or talking about here. Because that just doesn't seem right to me. Anyway. And yeah, again, keep in mind, I mean, the whole idea for this, of course, is that they just don't want to disenfranchise a voter, they say. Well, I say this, and hopefully the Supreme Court, which, by the way, when they were questioning, they were kind of like, well, you know, it's sort of this accepting ballots for days on end after Election Day. There's a reason why it's called Election Day. I mean, one of the Supreme Court justices did say that, or something similar to that. But anyway, the federal law, which I showed you this a little while ago, federal law sets the Tuesday after the first Monday in November in certain years as Elections Day for federal offices. Presidential election, of course, takes place every 4 years. Congressional election occurs every 2 years. The Senate people get voted in every 6. Now, the Election Day law focuses on when the ballots must be cast, as opposed to when they actually must be received by the election officials to count. Now, in October of 2024, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit held this case that even though states have a primary responsibility for regulating federal elections within their borders, Congress is also allowed to make or alter such regulations. Hello, that is Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. Anyway, the circuit court held that the federal election day law preempts the Mississippi law, preventing the state from accepting late ballots. And folks, if this actually gets overturned, I'm just saying, if this actually gets overturned, it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect a lot of things. And here's an example, and this is why I believe this is this thing is ripe for SCOTUS to go ahead and flip. I'm going to tell you, this is ripe. SCOTUS should do it. It just makes a hell of a lot of common sense. And as they point out, federal election law basically designates election day. Okay? So here's the thing. In Washington, where I live, Washington State, there was a governor's race. It was a pivotal governor's race. And in that governor's race, they kept recounting and recounting and recounting. They recounted the ballots 3 times. Now, normally that wouldn't be a problem if you had the same number of ballots from the get-go, meaning that your first count added up to, well, let's just use a nice round number, 100,000 ballots. There's plenty more than that, but still, just for illustrative purposes here. If your ballots added up to 100,000 on the first count, then your second and third counts should also add up to 100,000. But no, that isn't what happened. That isn't what happened here. What happened here was the second count and the third count. And this, I tell you, this was the proving grounds for the idea of allowing more ballots to come in, because they were finding ballots everywhere. They were finding ballots in people's cars. They were finding ballots stuck in some sort of a cabinet deep in the bowels of the election center or whatever. And they kept bringing out these ballots. They kept bringing them out and bringing them out. It was the Rossi versus Gregoire, governor's race. And this is essentially where I think all of this kind of got proven out. I think the Democrats here in the state of Washington said, hey, let's see if this works. And they did. Now, what happened? First count went to Rossi. Second count went to Rossi. Third count, and the final one that they accepted went to Gregoire. If you don't think that was that was just incredible. I mean, just to sit here and watch it over and over and over again, it was weeks. We were waiting for at least 3, if I remember correctly, 3 weeks, almost a month, before we knew who our governor was. And Dino Rossi, who was the first Republican to actually get close in years, got denied. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine. And I'm telling you, this was like the setup for the entire nation. And so now this is what's happening. And believe it or not, those 18 states, the vast majority of them are literally Democrat-run states. Yeah. Well, if this can get pulled out, Alito itself, by the way, Alito himself, during the oral arguments, Alito seemed concerned about the possibility of fraud when a big stash of ballots that arrives late radically flips an election. Yeah, kind of like, Biden's, we've had a 60-40 split in every single batch prior to this batch, and this batch is 100% for Biden. That is, again, it's the probability of that is extremely low. And I've talked about that on this program. But anyway, the Mississippi Solicitor General replied to that by saying, well, the other side, meaning the I'm assuming the Republicans or whoever, said they had not pointed to a single example of fraud from post-election day ballot receipts in this century. Well, Alito said the meaning of election day has expanded over the years. He goes, we don't have an election day anymore. We have an election month, or we have an election months. So, yeah. Anyway, Justice Kavanaugh asked the RNC attorney, Paul Clement, whether Purcell versus Gonzalez back in 2006 would be implicated if the high court were to rule on this case by June. Purcell held that the federal courts ordinarily should not enjoin state elections laws close to an election to avoid disruption. Clement replied that a June ruling would allow plenty of time to adjust for the general elections. Sotomayor, please, activist, not jurist. Sotomayor said that she actually questioned the Mississippi Solicitor General Clement, his argument that late arriving military and overseas ballots should not be counted. Sotomayor noted, maybe we need a new president. She was talking about the disputed 2000 election, where military ballots that arrived late were counted and helped the Republican George Bush win the election. Clement rejected her observation, saying that it was the reddest of red herrings. In particular, he was talking about how they violated Florida state law with that. Anyway, yeah, the laws that are governing the absentee military ballots have historically required that they be received by Election Day. Stewart said that Congress has long allowed the receipt of the late receipt of ballots. The Mississippi Solicitor General said that Congress had established the federal election day in 1845 when voting practices were different. Yeah, I told you about that not too long ago, how they had, just to kind of catch everybody who hasn't been watching this for a long time, but to catch people up on this, prior to the formation of Election Day by Congress in 1845, some states actually had election months. Like, they would have early voting, and then 30 days later, the polls would close. And they discovered that if a state closed polls early, like let's say one state had 2 weeks to vote, and they closed their polls early, they would announce the winner, which would then influence the voting in the other states that hadn't closed yet. And so the argument was back at that time that, hey, we just need everybody on the same day to vote. Excuse me. And, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, well, suffice it to say, it doesn't sound like the SCOTUS was really all that pleased about the whole thing. And if that's the case, then this election strategy, which typically favors the Democrats, ironically, yeah, this would favor the Democrats usually. And, yeah, let's just say that it was kind of, well, quite interesting for this. In fact, Justice Thomas had something particular to say about this, and let's go ahead and take a listen to his argument. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. I thought it was going to play it straight ahead. My bad.
Phrases that involve 2 words, the second of which is day. Labor Day, Memorial Day, George Washington's birthday, Independence Day.
This is Samuel Alito.
Birthday, and Election Day. And they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place, or almost everything. And then we have 3 points in time. 1844, 1872, 1914. We can ask, what would people have thought on those days is meant by this phrase, Election Day? Which of those should we choose? Which of those dates should we choose?
Well, I think you could choose any of the 3. I mean, honestly, I think the single best one, if you're just going to choose one, is 1872. And the reason I say that is because 1914 is the latest in time, but that's the one that Congress gave the least thought to.
I thought that was Justice Thomas, but it wasn't. My apologies. Anyway, that was Alito talking about this. So, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and by the way, the reason why I wanted to hear Justice Thomas, because it was actually Harmeet Dillon was in court for that, and she was saying that Justice Thomas's facial expressions were priceless. Anyway, yeah. So I don't think they're going to succeed on this. I really don't. And if they don't, that to me is, well, it's good. In my opinion, it's good. Well, the Supreme Court also dealt a blow to the Dems again. If that one ends up, that one is still in oral arguments. They haven't figured this out. This one was an actual opinion that was issued today. So you know how the Democrats have been sitting there and saying that they're going to go after and persecute and prosecute ICE agents. They're going to, go after the ICE agents if they're not prosecuted, like the ones that were unfortunately the instigator, or I won't say instigators, the individuals involved in the Preddy and Good shootings. They've been talking about all of this stuff and how all this crap is going on. Well, the Supreme Court has actually potentially put a bit of a kibosh on that. And keep in mind, the Democrats, of course, have been talking about doing this clear that they tend to weaponize the federal government against, anybody, basically, that goes along with President Trump. His allies didn't sufficiently resist the Trump administration. Susan Rice clearly said it. She's been talking about it. Illinois Governor Pritzker, has been talking about it. Well, the Supreme Court today, they issued let's just put it this way. It was the whole idea of the going after the ICE agents and going after these agents doing just doing their jobs, may have gotten a quick nail in the coffin today. So the Supreme Court has made it clear that going after law enforcement in particular, and going after them for doing their jobs is not kosher. So they essentially reversed the Second Circuit. Now the Second Circuit had an officer. It was a Vermont officer in particular. And it was a person from the Vermont State Police. He was a sergeant. And he apparently was at some sort of a protest. The opinion is from Zorn v. Linton. Sergeant Jacob Zorn's actions reportedly, according to the lawsuit, reportedly violated the Constitution. Well, they basically said, nope, that's not the case. They pretty much said that the justices said existing precedent, legal precedent, did not clearly establish that he violated the Constitution. It was a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit brought by one of the protesters who was apparently hurt after the sergeant had warned the person, you got to leave, you got to get out of here, you can't be here, and then ended up forcibly removing them. And the gal, who I think it's a gal, a girl, whatever. Anyway, she apparently was quote unquote injured because he applied pressure to her wrist and lifted her to her feet after he placed her arm behind her back. And so she filed suit saying that she suffered physical and psychological injuries. Well, the Supreme Court basically said, because the appeals court upheld it, the appeals court said, yeah, you are liable. And the Supreme Court said, no, they're not. That the police have qualified immunity. And there wasn't enough information to actually demonstrate that her constitutional rights were violated. They said in the ruling, which by the way was an unsigned ruling, so the Second Circuit held that Zorn was not entitled to qualified immunity. We reverse. So they said that the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals failed to identify a sufficiently similar case where an officer's actions were ruled unconstitutional. That failure meant that Zorn was entitled to qualified immunity. It said, because the Second Circuit failed to identify a case where an officer taking similar actions in similar circumstances was held to have violated the Constitution, Zorn was entitled to qualified immunity. We grant his petition for a writ of certiorari and reverse the judgment of the Second Circuit. So, win for the police for these guys, thankfully. Yep. As rightfully they should. I mean, they should, honestly. They should protect the police. The police are only following laws. Well, I mean, obviously within reason. There have been cases, but it can't just be carte blanche. You pretty much have to prove your case to show that the police knowingly did something outside of the law in the process while they are enforcing that law. So, yeah. Anyway. Well, speaking of enforcing the law, first of all, ICE agents have replaced TSA in some places. Not all of them, but they're helping TSA out. And, well, you know, I like it when I hear CNN actually report the truth, especially because the truth is, well, the truth. And Democrats hate the truth. So here, let's go ahead and take a listen really quick. This is a report about the Atlanta airport.
Finally, we can take a deep breath here. The numbers have dropped off. The lines are getting shorter. I think the average wait time now is under 40 minutes. So if you have a flight to catch today, it's a good time to come to Hartsfield-Jackson International.
Yeah, so I guess those ICE agents really helped. Well, Senator Booker, of course, freaked out about it. And, you know, Spartacus himself had to go and make a statement in the airport, wherever this is. I don't know where this is. But anyway, he had to make a statement in the airport. And, come on.
Happening today in America that should outrage everybody. He's taking this very same agency that has been bursting into our schools, into our churches, into our hospitals, into
doing
our
their jobs,
courts, and even into the homes of Americans. He's taking that agency that is reckless and out of control and bringing them to our airports under the lie that somehow this is going to help deal with the long lines that he created in the first place.
Well, okay. No, he didn't create it. You and your cohorts did, you dumbass. Anyway, so yeah. Well, yeah, you just heard Hartsfield-Jackson went from like a 3-hour wait down to like a 40-minute wait. So there's this video that apparently has been running around with regards to the ICE agents being in the airports. And of course, it circulated on the social medias. It went everywhere. They were all, you know, especially all the Democrat accounts, all of the leftist leaning accounts, they all went crazy over this. And well, the leftist leaning accounts, they all were like, hey, this woman, mother, oh, she got detained. She's traveling with her young daughter. They've kidnapped her. Bah, 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 bah. And especially a couple of accounts grabbed 2 or 3 different angles, footages, whatever, claiming that the woman was a U.S. citizen traveling with her young daughter. And it's because, you know, according to a quote witness. Yeah. Anyway, the actual truth of the matter is that this woman was a illegal alien. The arrest occurred the day prior. So a Sunday, March 22nd, not the 23rd, not yesterday, but 2 days ago, before the ICE agents were actually deployed anywhere at any airport to bolster TSA. And this woman and this was at San Francisco's International Airport, by the way. They actually had a deportation order because she's Guatemalan, not a U.S. citizen. She was under a deportation order since 2019. Yeah, since 2019. Seriously? Come on. How wrong can these people be? How often can they be wrong? And people, you know, I'm sorry, if you sit here and believe any of these Democrats anymore, yeah, it's time for you to get some new people to listen to, because this seriously is not what's happening. And of course, you know, this is where the Dan Bongino rule comes into play. Okay. Dan Bongino has this 72-hour rule where you hold until things come out, the real story. Yeah. So anyway. Well, Delta Airlines in the final moments here. Delta Airlines has decided to up the pressure on the Democrats to fund DHS, and in particular the TSA. Now, I didn't know that they had this, but apparently Delta Airlines, and maybe other airlines too, but Delta Airlines actually has a special counter. It's called the Special Congressional Desk Service. And they give this to lawmakers and staffers who are on Capitol Hill. And the airline itself has finally said, you know what? We're yanking this. We're yanking this Special Congressional Desk Service. We're putting it on hold until you guys get the Department of Homeland Security funded again. So according to the company's statement, first reported in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Well, that's a hell of a paper name, huh? Anyway, they said, quote, due to the impact on resources from the long-standing government shutdown, Delta will temporarily suspend specialty services to members of Congress flying on Delta. They said, next to safety, Delta's number one priority is taking care of our people and customers, which has become increasingly difficult in the current environment. And here's the perks. Here's the perks that Delta gives to members of Congress. Airport escorts, red coat services. Its Capitol Desk reservation line itself is still open, by the way, but the lawmakers will be treated as any passenger based on their respective SkyMiles status for the time being. So, yeah. Now, last week, I didn't report on this, but you may have seen that Delta CEO Ed Bastian delivered a fierce rebuke of Congress for allowing funding for DHS to lapse, which resulted in the TSA employees going without full pay for, right now, it's well over a month. Bastian called the situation inexcusable and railed against lawmakers for using TSA workers as political chips. I didn't use the word pawn, but whatever. Anyway. It's inexcusable that our security agents, our frontline agents that are essential to what we do, are not being paid, and it's ridiculous to see them being used as political chips. He told a CNBC folks, he told them last Tuesday, and he's like, we're outraged. So there you go. Delta, by the way, for those that don't know, is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. So, anyway, the TSA workers, by the way, got their last full paycheck on February 14th, received a partial one on February 28th, and have missed their next pay period, which was on the 13th of March, according to an agency spokesperson. This Friday is their next pay period, which right now appears to not going to be funded. So, yeah. And by the way, for those keeping track or not keeping track, this is the third funding lapse that TSA has actually weathered in the last 6 months. So you kind of wonder why 400 agents or more have left the agency. I mean, they don't make a whole hell of a lot of money. They're less than like $40,000 a year, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's just starting. That's starting salary. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Tomorrow night is Whiskey Wednesday. If for those who are not used to this, it is an hour-and-a-half program versus an hour. And at the end of it, we have our one of our fan favorites called Pet of the Week segment. So be here tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. We will see you tomorrow night, and good night, everybody.